So, last day of CA World. Glad to see you all here. I'm Lowell Higley. I'm a product manager for the mainframe BU at CA. And I've got Scott Broad with me. He is the Assistant VP of IT Infrastructure at Bank Hapoalim. So, we're going to talk to you today about the blame game. So, what is the blame game? So, everybody knows that there's a lot of tools out there to do monitoring. You've got a tool for network monitoring. You've got a tool for storage monitoring and processes and systems, et cetera, right? So across the enterprise, you could have dozens of tools that do the same thing. So if a problem pops up, you know, one person's tool, like storage tool, for example, may say that everything's great with storage. The networking tool may say everything's great with networking. So across the enterprise, you've got all these siloed tools and they're all showing green, yet your transactions are dying. So very quickly, you get dozens of people on the phone. You talk about what the problem might be, and everybody's saying, there's no problem with my tool, right? So there's no problem with networking, right? Or storage, or what have you, and you start pointing the game, or pointing your fingers, right? So that's what we're talking about, the blame game. We're going to talk about how Scott has taken a CA product and implemented it in his organization, in the bank, and how they're trying to stop that blame game. And we'll see how well they've succeeded. All right, so here's a more detailed list of what we're going to talk about. I just already set the scene, so there you go. We're going to talk about what life was like at Bank Hapoalim before they adopted this CA tool. We're going to talk about kind of what ideal looks like, the buying process they went through, and then kind of what the results were and what they hope to get out of it. And after that, I'm going to talk about the product that they're using. All right, so Scott, why don't you take a few seconds, tell us about the bank and about yourself and your role there, and a little bit about your infrastructure.
Sure. So Bank Hapoalim, it's the largest bank in Israel. I'm on the state side, so I head up IT infrastructure for enterprise computing, mainframe storage, as well as open systems for the Americas. We have everything from mainframe, enterprise storage, networking, like hundreds of networking devices, hundreds of servers, virtual environment, physical environment. I think that pretty much covers that. So we have a large environment that's been pieced together and really built up over the last 20 years.
So Bank Hapoalim's an international bank, right? Mm-hmm. So what kind of complexities does that introduce into your IT infrastructure? The international part of it is actually, we're a kind of a separate entity from our head office. So we have tons of different areas in the bank. So you have your core banking systems, your online banking systems, plus all of your applications and customer management across the board. The hardest thing to do, and what we realized when over the last few years, is we don't have a panel. We don't have a clear view of what's going on. It was a very reactive business instead of a proactive business, which when the customer is calling you and telling you your application is down, and it just adds time onto the finding the resolution. Okay. Thanks, Scott. All right, so day to day, a lot of the problems that we encounter in our infrastructure that might be pop up, they're pretty small. They don't take a lot of effort to resolve. We can fix those and not really worry about life too much. But every once in a while, a complex issue arises, and that complex issue may take a little bit longer, and it may take a lot more resources to resolve that problem. So why don't you give us an example of what a complex issue at Bank Hapoalim may look like?
Sure. So we have, I'll use an example for our online banking. It's internet banking. Now in the States, we don't have 100 million users. So it's a much smaller user base. However, it's the most important system that we have in our bank. When we have users that aren't able to connect to it, they'll call in, and then 10 people will get called, and the application team is blaming the storage guys, and the storage guys are blaming the network guys. So this is the type of issues that we see all the time, and we never had a way to. You have to look at multiple different areas to figure out just where to send the problem to.
Okay. Thanks. that kind of leads into my next question. In the past, when those problems popped up, how did they come to your
Sure.
attention?
Sure. So in the past, we have an operations center that monitors our mainframe, our storage. It monitors the whole gauntlet of our infrastructure, and it's staffed 24 hours a day. So in the past, and even still today, really, we have they're also our help desk. So anytime we have our user base calls in and has a question on an application, a performance issue, they'll call the help desk, and it's their job to determine exactly where to call. Do we call the storage guys? Do we call the mainframe team? Do we call the network team? So that's how we get notified of the problems, by users calling in. So we don't have a big red screen that turns.
So when you say users, who are you talking about?
Our user base are both internal users, so our customers within the bank. So our internal everyday users, our application team, our bankers, everyone that works internally to the bank. However, we also have a very large user base on the outside. Those are our customers that are using the bank services, whether it's in the lending area, in the market area, or private wealth management, private banking.
So how long, on average, did it take you, in the historical sense, to resolve these problems, to find them and then resolve them?
To get the final resolution, anywhere from an hour, half hour to, we've had outages that for 6 to 8 hours. I remember the first week I was at the bank, we had an internal network outage inside the bank. And actually, connectivity to the outside and to our external users actually wasn't suffering. It was all of the internal banking users. So and most of that time was spent trying to figure out exactly what area the problem was in. Again, everyone's blaming every other area. So it's really difficult to say exactly how long, but I would say a minimum of a half hour to 45 minutes. And then off time, after hours, after 5 o'clock, it really depends on when the data center and op team can get in touch with the right people.
Okay, so what was the impact of these outages on, the employees of the bank, your customers? What were those impacts?
The internal impacts are if you can't connect up to if you can't get your desktop online, if you're not getting an IP address, you can't do any work. There's really the productivity is there. If you can't connect to the mainframe, you can't do anything internal. So the productivity is just not there. On the other side, we are a bank, so we deal with wire transfers and core banking and moving money around. So there's some systems that we have the potential for, if we can't get a wire transfer out by the cutoff time at the end of the day, you're talking a large sum of money that is now not earning interest or earning interest. So there could be a big financial impact.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's talk about a little about Paradise. What does perfect look like?
Paradise is the data center never having to call anyone. Everything's green and nothing ever fails.
Okay, so reality sets in, right? So what is the right way, the ideal way for us to know that we've got a problem in our infrastructure so that we can go take action?
Sure. Ideally, we have our operations center, their monitoring systems. We have giant TVs in the data center. One has a mainframe scrolling the whole time, and then the other one would be the dashboard for the entire infrastructure. And on that screen, they have their data center view of all the areas of the bank, all the locations, and you go from red to yellow to green, and they're notified as soon as a server loses connectivity or an application goes down, or one of the web servers goes down. We know immediately. So by the time a user actually calls us, we can say it's already been worked on and we've already got the ball in motion. Instead of having that time where it went down until the user called to complain about it, that time is gone.
Okay. So with that definition of perfect, is that a single tool, a collection of tools? How do you see that working? How do you see the tools working together if it's multiple tools?
Sure. Historically speaking, we didn't have any real tools. We had SolarWinds would monitor our networking side, and the networking team used that, but it wasn't in the data center. We had Tivoli monitoring servers, but they were just doing ping. It's a ping thing. It's just red or green, and you can't drill down. You can't see any detail. Servers up, servers down. We had Brocade Network Advisor monitoring our storage systems. On the mainframe side, we used to use, we had a number of different products, and we have SysView monitoring the mainframe. But SysView, unless you have the skill set for using that tool, it's great for your engineers to determine exactly where the problem is. But in our data center, they don't have those skills. They're more of a alerting, and they run the schedule, and they do help desk type of calls. So there's no real one panel. So you have multiple screens, multiple things, multiple dashboards, and that was the problem that we ran into.
Okay, so let me restate that a little bit.
Sure.
So Perfect is a tool or a group of tools where you have a single pane of glass or a single dashboard for your IT operations analysts, so those people that have, they're generalists, so an end-to-end view of the entire infrastructure, right? So they see something turn red, they make a phone call, they open a service desk ticket, whatever they need to do, and then they hand that particular case off to somebody that's a specialist that may enter using that tool or start using another tool to actually dig down into the depths and solve the problem.
Yep, and a tool that you can also modify. So you have, your data center has one view, and then outside of my CIO's office, he has this giant TV, and he just wants to see everything green.
So you want to have multiple views using the same tool. You want to have an executive view for your CIO or your executive staff. You want to have another view for your IT generalists, and yet another view for maybe your area specialists, whatever area they may be in.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Now we know what perfect looks like. So in the last year, your bank went through a buying process. You went through the process of evaluating well, first of all, defining what perfect looks like, and then kind of identifying what it is you wanted in that tool, perfect. Looking at the tools out there that are available and going through that process, selecting the tool. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what was the number one problem that you guys kept in mind as you were trying to select that tool, whatever the tool ended up being?
Sure. So for the size of our bank and the size of our infrastructure team is very resource light. So we don't. So we wanted something that is easy to manage, easy to push out, and easy to admin on a not so daily basis, but on an ongoing basis. And it couldn't be a beast of a tool that takes a dedicated person the entire time. So we reached out and looked at all different products that would give us that one pane of glass dashboard, as well as an easy to use tool. If you give too much information on one spot on a dashboard, or you have one tool that only does this, you can get very granular on that. But if my boss looks up and sees 47 different things turning green and yellow, it makes it really complicated. So we want something that was easy to look at and easy to use.
Okay, so the problem that we're trying to solve here is we're trying to, we've got limited resources with various skill sets, with various purposes for using the tool.
Yep.
So we're looking for something that's extensible, easy to install, maybe quick time to value, and flexible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something that exactly what we just said. The easy to install and the easy to actually bring it up is one of the most important parts on the infrastructure side of the problem.
Okay. So drum roll, please. Okay. What tool did you select?
UIM. So Unified Infrastructure Management used to be NIMSoft, and then. And so when I was actually going through that process, when we were first talking to CA about UIM, I brought up last year, before we even decided to move forward, I said, why don't you have a probe in the UIM that has mainframe as well? Because it monitored the entire gauntlet, it took care of all of our infrastructure, but the mainframe is still there, and it's still such an important piece. It's a great integration, since CA's suite of mainframe products already has all that data.
So you selected CAU IM, or Unified Infrastructure Management, as the tool to monitor your cross-enterprise infrastructure. And one of the main reasons, or one of the big reasons you selected that tool, was because it also included or encompassed the mainframe.
Yep. Once I was notified that it's going to have it was in development to run UIM for Z, it was a huge selling point.
Okay. So how did you sell that particular idea to senior management?
Sure. So the UIM for Z probe is a great, as I said before, a great picture. You can see everything puts on that one dashboard. The engineers, it's good for them, but it's more for the senior management view and their data center operations.
Okay.
I sold it by bringing up past issues. I created business cases based off of your mean time to resolution and your root cause analysis. And you just show that, and you show the time that you could save and getting into a more proactive environment.
Okay, awesome, thank you. All right, so let's talk about what's going on today. You went into production for CA UIM last week, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so prior to going in production, you actually had it in test for several months, correct?
Correct.
So why don't you talk about kind of what that environment looks like today and kind of all the facets you installed, maybe some of the pieces that you're monitoring that are critical, infrastructure that you're monitoring that's critical. Kind of go through that.
Okay, so we are monitoring our entire environment. So everything from our storage boxes to our VM environment to UCS, network devices. We have every network device is now on there, and we have that one view, and that one executive level view on the CIO's dashboard has the entire country. All of our locations with connectivity, and everything is green, red. And then there's a small little grid that has the pieces of the infrastructure. So you have your mainframe, your storage, network, and server.
Okay.
So that's where we are now, and it was rolled out last week. And now as we're getting the feedback from all the users, we're adding more and more to it. I think our next phase is going to be the security side.
Okay, so there is, one of the first things you did is you rolled out that executive dashboard for executive management. And there's a dashboard for the generalists as well, correct?
Correct.
Right. So is that a little bit more intricate than the one for the executives, or is it about the same?
So the way I would say it is, you have that one first dashboard, and then if you see red, you can drill down. And the further you drill down, you get into the specialist dashboards. So if on the executive dashboard, you see that the server turned yellow. You click down, and then it shows locations and which one is red or yellow.
Okay.
And then you keep going, and then when you get to, let's say, the network area, then on that screen, you can see utilization, you can see bandwidth, you can see number of connections, and that would be more for the specialist level.
Okay, so for those that are generalists and are using this tool that may know how to spell System Z, but not exactly what it is, I mean, how are they adapting this tool, and how are they able to use it to help monitor the mainframe?
So the UIM for Z probes we have installed are the storage probe and then the systems probe. So we have all the address spaces, we have all of our volumes, and you can see usage on the volumes. You can see how the CPU and all the address spaces are running, and it gives you that kind of an insight. Now, for our engineers, our mainframe engineers, that tool is going to get them to the right spot. So we use it for proactive alerting. So we have alerting being sent out to our data center. They see it turn red, and then they notify exactly who needs to be notified. So if they see that, we had no way of doing that before. The only thing we used was SysView, and that up, and again it does alerting, and you can do all the automation, but this just adds that nice pretty picture.
Okay, so we've been in production for a week. You've used it in test for several months prior to that.
Right.
So would you say you've already seen benefits of adopting this new tool?
Yeah, I love the trending analysis part of it. Was in the past doing capacity planning, and it wasn't really as important as it is now. So we used it for the last few months, and I think we got the most we got out of it as being able to see where our trends are, where our usages are, what's being used, what's not being used, and then the active alerting has been great.
Okay. So, wow, I kind of stole the storm there, didn't I? All right, so as far as lowering MTTR, the mean time to resolution, what has this tool helped you do?
So in the past, when users would call in and say this application's down, our data center team would call. If it's a mainframe related issue, they'd call me or someone on the team, and then the first thing I would say is, this application isn't working. Okay, stop there. What do you mean? What's not working? It's going slow. What's going slow? What are you trying to do? And getting a user to tell you exactly what the problem, they have no idea. So this eliminates that whole front part of the process where the data center can just click through and they'll see, oh, it's Z storage, these packs are all red. There seems like there's a connectivity problem on the back end. So then they can call the storage team. And the same thing with for a mainframe application. So if an address space, like an address space is down, you have CSS transactions down, users can't get to it. They're immediately going to call the data center. The data center is going to call our CSS guys or our mainframe guys. And what's the problem? Do you need a system person? Can they just restart the address space? Can you, who do we call? So we got rid of at least an hour of trying to get it to the right person.
Okay. So have you seen maybe a less or lower amount of trouble tickets?
Yes. So in the past, everything was created. Anytime a call came in, trouble tickets were created.
Okay.
So you have help desk tickets. You can get. I've seen tons. Now, since we're doing proactive monitoring, our help desk sees it, our data center sees it. So they don't. We're already proactively solving the problem. So those help desk tickets are cut down a lot.
Okay, so fewer phone calls or fewer meetings with masses of people pointing
Yeah.
fingers at each other.
Yep.
Okay, that's good. So most importantly, what do you expect to see the benefits to your internal customers and your external customers?
I think the benefit is going to be a more highly available environment, proactive instead of reactive analysis, lower MTTRs, and a much more streamlined process with the ability for our higher levels to see exactly what's going on in the business. My CIO has no idea doesn't know anything about mainframe. There's no way he can log on and see where there's an issue. This gives them that picture, so we're able to see and show people what's going on at all times.
Okay, so you just reminded me of a subject, right? So there's several different kinds of enterprises or organizations out there. There's organizations that you have an IT operations team, on the top, right, that does that initial triaging, and then you might have a specialty team of mainframers and special teams within that mainframe team, and AIX and all that other stuff. And then on the other side of the spectrum, or the other side of the pendulum, you might have companies where everybody's siloed. So you don't have an overarching cross-enterprise operations team. You just have those silos, so the mainframe and everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the bank is more of on the side that's kind of got that overarching cross-enterprise, belief or mentality, correct?
Right. And the beautiful part about this is, if you have, let's say you have a company that has a data center that's their mainframe operation center, and then you have another data center that runs like their NOC, just the network. This tool, you can use this tool across the board and set up very specific dashboards and collect the right data for those specific teams.
Okay, so that sounds very flexible. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about UIM now, CAU IM and CAU IM for Z systems. So we're trying to solve a couple of key problems with UIM for Z systems. So Scott and I have talked a little bit about how do you use that cross-enterprise single pane of glass to view all of your infrastructure problems in one place. So there's a lot of solutions out there. Some of those solutions are made up of multiple products. CAU IM and CAU IM for Z systems is a single product, that gives you that same kind of a functionality. So we're giving you visibility across the entire enterprise with a single tool, giving you that single source of truth. So in the same vein, we're reducing the number of tools and the number of skill sets that are required on that cross-enterprise structure, so that you don't need to train your generalists how to use the 3270, even if they're willing to do that. We're also helping you accelerate the mean time to resolution, help you find and identify and resolve those problems more quickly. All right, so today in the market, actually in August, we released 3 probe packs for CAU IM for Z systems. So we have a Pro Pack for ZOS. We call it the CAU IM Operations for Z Systems Pro Pack. All right, and that includes all of your, includes a lot of metrics for ZOS to monitor your KEX, your LPARs, your OS instances running into those LPARs. We can look at, as Scott mentioned, look at things like your address spaces, your CPU utilization. We can even report on specialty processors as well. Started tasks, system tasks, etc. Then we have a storage Pro Pack, CAU IM storage for Z systems. So that Pro Pack kind of dives down into the metrics of your DASD, right, of your disks, and response times, and utilization, and available space, things like that. So all those core metrics. And then the final Pro Pack that we released in August, version 1.0, is the CAU IM for Z Systems Pro Pack. That's for teams that are running ZVM and possibly virtualization under ZVM. So with that Pro Pack, we can take a look from the hypervisor perspective. We can look at things like CPU utilization, wait states, spool space, etc. Right? We can also look at some of your channel metrics. And with the version 1.1, which we released in October, very shortly after the first release, we introduced networking metrics and also enhanced the SSI metrics as well. So the first release of CAU IM for Z systems was providing that foundation, those building blocks to monitor your mainframe environments, infrastructure from that single pane of glass and incorporate them in a tool where your operations team, your overarching cross-enterprise operations team can look at those metrics and be alerted to those problems. So we're almost done. We talked a little bit about silos and things like that, and the different kinds of organizations. We talked a lot about the tool. So Scott, is there any last-minute advice you have for the good people in the audience that may be considering, new tools, either from a mainframe perspective to include the mainframe, maybe in a cross-enterprise perspective, or maybe they're a siloed organization? What's the benefit to being, to having that cross-enterprise
Sure.
view?
So in in either a siloed organization or across the board, overall infrastructure management, the mainframe skill set is a dying breed. It really is. It's really getting lower and lower in the industry, and your data center operators, your operations, a lot of people come in and just have no idea what they're looking at or how to dive into problem analysis. So this gives you a more familiar look to it. So you have a graphical interface. You have it's a web interface, which is something more comfortable for people that may not have the skill set to dive in and troubleshoot and see where problems are after and be alerted by them. I think so.
Okay. Well, thank you, Scott. We have a few minutes left, so if anybody has any questions, there's a mic up here. If not, we'll just close it up early and I'll give you some time back. Okay. So I'd ask that if you want to talk more about UIM for Z systems, I'm at a demo pedestal right over here, and I'll be there for most of the afternoon. I'm also doing an off-floor presentation this afternoon in Breaker's Eye. I'm going to dig a little bit into the roadmap and more details about the UIM for Z systems product, go into a little bit about the architecture, how we're pulling those metrics off the platform, and how we're presenting them to UIM. So if you would care to discuss it more, feel free to come talk to me. I believe it's at 4 o'clock. Yes, Priya's checking for me. Okay. All right, thank you, everyone.